first luxury boutique hotel in Moldova.
What is Face2Face? It's a program exclusively in English. It's a show with special guests, all non-citizens of Moldova. What will we talk about? About whatever we feel like. Hi Sharon, how are you today?
Fine, nice to see you today.
Nice to see you too. The first thing that I want to tell you is welcome to Moldova, even if it's not the first day that you're here, from what I know. How do you feel in Moldova? We'll have some typical questions and then we'll have some weird ones, maybe. It depends on how our conversation will go. So how did Moldova welcome you?
Well, actually, I felt good in Moldova from the very first day I arrived.
And when was that?
It has been a year and 9 months. I've been here a while now, and people have been very friendly. And of course, I've had wonderful opportunity working at the embassy and working with all of the Moldovan staff there, who have been extremely helpful. And yes, it's been very pleasant here in Moldova. I have enjoyed it a great deal.
What is it exactly that you do here?
Well, my primary responsibilities are in two areas. One is working with mass media, and the other is working with cultural and educational exchange programs. So we do several things. We work with the mass media, we do grants, and we also do a certain amount of programming to assist independent media in Moldova. We also write speeches we write drafts to go to the ambassador, and after he works on them, that he gives them. Sometimes we do presentations in the community. And then on the other part, we are involved in the programs where Moldovans spend time in the United States and Americans spend time here. The U.S. government sponsors many programs. Sometimes they send Moldovans to the United States for 2 weeks, and sometimes for up to 2 years.
How much did you know about Moldova when you first got here?
Well, by the time I got here, I knew a fair amount. But when I first learned I was coming here, I knew almost nothing. I had actually, the way we work in the Foreign Service in the United States, you get a list of places that are available, and you request places and then match it all up. And so when I first saw it on the list, it was listed as Chisinau, not even as Moldova, and I didn't know where Chisinau was. And I started reading about it and said, wow, this sounds really interesting. And by the time I actually put in my requests of where I'd like to go, I had put Moldova as my first choice.
Now, why did you put it as your first choice? Was it something that impressed you?
It was a mixture of two things. I was coming from a placement that was very exciting but quite dangerous. And one of the things that appealed to me about Moldova is it looked a lot safer. It looked very pleasant, which I think has turned out to be true. It's got kind of a nice climate, it's got pretty countryside, it's safe. So those things were all appealing. The other thing was each placement has a slightly different job to do. And I liked what the job was going to be here. So it was a mixture of Moldova and this particular position.
What other countries have you visited so far before coming to Moldova?
Before coming to Moldova? Well, I lived for 2 years working at a similar job in Ecuador, and during that time I not only saw a great deal of Ecuador, but visited a great deal of South America. While I was in the United States, before I started living overseas, I actually visited several countries in Asia, spent a lot of time in Mexico because I lived quite near Mexico, and then also had traveled throughout Western Europe. So I actually figured it out a little bit ago, and by the time I leave Moldova, I will have been to about 40 countries.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
It's kind of exciting, yeah.
Now, out of all these countries, was there one that, people say that when a foreigner goes to a different country, he has a big cultural shock. Did you have one when you came to Moldova or to a different country? Which country was the one that gave you the biggest shock?
The biggest shock is easy. It was Nepal, without question. I hadn't traveled a lot overseas, and Nepal is so completely different than the United States. I felt like, I described it when I got back, of feeling like I was in the 17th century on a slightly different planet. It was just, everything was different, and that was definitely the biggest shock. Moldova, really, I didn't feel shock, but over time I'm aware of more and more things that are just a little different.
Can you name a few?
Well, I think, one of the classics is the fact that I believe that when Americans smile unless they have a reason not to, and Moldovans smile when they have a reason to smile. So when we're kind of neutral, we walk around, we're kind of neutral, everything's okay.
Yes.
And Moldovans don't do that. They walk around when they're kind of neutral, going, everything's okay. And so we have this tendency, I think, and I kind of felt this, of feeling sometimes that I'm being scowled at, when actually what I understand is that people are just kind of neutral.
Now, what about the food? Do you miss something, or do you like something from our food that kind of doesn't let you think of the other stuff that you miss?
I'll tell you what I miss. It's Mexican food.
Okay.
Because I lived in the southwestern part of the United States, very, very close to Mexico. And when I think of American food, I think of Mexican food a lot.
A lot of
Here,
spices.
a lot of the Moldovan food is kind of similar to the other American food. So I don't find a tremendous amount of anything to miss. But there's nothing that's like Mexican food. Nothing like it. And I miss Mexican food.